what a lovely service leader. And it really is wonderful to be here with you all today and with everyone online. Hello.
Hi.
So this is not my first time in Fredericksburg. I actually did my undergraduate work at Mary Washington.
Oh,
so
no kidding.
I have 2 bachelor degrees from Mary Washington, one in sociology and one in theater. And the majority of my adult life I've spent working in performing arts until about 2017, when I kind of switched directions and kind of took my toolkit that I'd been using for years in performing arts and aimed it towards unity. So I'm now in the field path, which means I'm working on becoming a minister in unity, which should be happening pretty soon. I appreciate your prayers of support on that.
Yes.
And so it's nice to be back in Fredericksburg, and so much has changed since I was here, because that was like the 1980s. So
Yes, it has.
yes, things have changed, and when I asked what theme you all were working with, I was told the theme is transition. So that's all about change as well. I'm familiar with that, aren't we all? Because pretty much every day we're all dealing with some kind of transition. I'm familiar with that on a ministry level. I work at Unity of Bon Air in Richmond, Virginia, where we've pretty much been in a state of transition since 2018, and we still are. So I understand that Unity Fredericksburg is in transition, so I feel in lots of different ways, and I'm just really happy to be here. And we all understand that energy of transition changes. I don't know if anyone noticed, but there was a change overnight that we're all dealing with this morning. As what time is it?
Bravo, everybody who made it in.
All of you all.
Thank you for getting up.
Here on time. Yay.
A hearty
So we all get that. We all get that process of dealing with transition. And although many of us are adventurous, there's always a part of everyone that really kind of craves some level of stability, something you can anchor to, some balance. And a lot of times things in the outside world don't support that, right? All kinds of craziness going on. And then we look in the mirror and it's like, well, I look differently than I did the day before. So it happens on a personal level. It's out there in the world. But in unity, we talk about things that are stable and balanced. So in unity, we're here to explore our divine nature and things that are true and steady, as opposed to the things that we're experiencing in our human nature, which is changing all the time. So one of these things that we can always count on is divine love. So my title for today is Love is My Compass. So when it comes to transition, when it comes to figuring out which step is next, that's kind of where I'm coming from today. Love is my compass. And not talking about, there's the emotion of love, and we're all familiar with that, right? Things that we just really care deeply about. But in unity, we talk about the power of love.
Yes.
So one of the 12 powers, one of the essential kind of teaching units from Charles Fillmore, and understanding how the power of love operates can really help us in negotiating transition. So some of the aspects of the power of love. The power of love is said to have a magnetizing energy, a harmonizing energy, a unifying energy. And it keys off of, on the personal level, it keys off of wherever we are putting our energy. So whatever it is we're focusing on, we're tapping into the power of love all the time, and we get more of whatever it is we're focusing on, because the power of love says, we would like to have more tranquility. And then your human brain gets involved too, because your human brain is your steadfast servant that will do whatever you say. So whatever thoughts you have going says, oh, we want tranquility. Then your human brain starts going out saying, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? However, it gets a little tricky, because sometimes our thoughts and feelings are pointed towards worry, anxiety, and the power of love is just there for us to use. So there's a response there too. So if we're putting all of our energy into worrying about something, then the power of love goes, okay, we want some stuff to worry about. And our human brain gets on board too. This is, you all are Unity folks. I assume that you are familiar with what they call the law of mind action.
Mm-hmm.
So thoughts held in mind tend to produce more thoughts of the same kind. So you start off with an anxious, irritated thought, then your brain goes, oh, okay, that's what we're looking for. Let's go find more of that. And here's some more things to be worried about. Here's some more things to be angry about. And the power of love, we're tapping into that in that way too. We're giving our energy to this thing that we're simmering and bitter and angry about. Our power of love, it senses, okay, we're giving our energy to this. So the thing that's wonderful is that we have control over that. In our lives, we can control how we're managing our thoughts and our feelings, so we can focus on peace, focus on community, focus on tranquility, whatever it is that we want more of. We can consciously work on managing our thoughts, managing our feelings, so that all the good juju is flowing in that direction, rather than all the things that are out there to be worried about. Now, of course, we have to manage our lives, right? We have to manage our human lives. We need to, be aware of the weather, and talk about crazy weather yesterday. I don't know about you all here, but in Richmond, which is only an hour away, we had warmth overnight, a thunderstorm at 6 o'clock in the morning, then it got colder, blizzard.
Yep.
Talk about a day that was like, one needs to manage things in your outer life and not plan a picnic. And that's what your human brain is for. That's what your ego is for, is to manage all of that, right? But we always have to remember to be checking in with our divine nature, and that's what our spiritual practice is about. However you do your spiritual practice. Now, in Unity, we'll talk about the importance of prayer and meditation in particular. Meditation is right at the heart of the Unity prayer practice. But I've seen that as many people as there are, there's that many spiritual practices. So however it is that you do that, if it's gardening or swimming or sitting and, having a candle and breathing, prayer, however it is you do that, that's our way of checking in with our divine nature. Ceasing to engage with all the things that our human brain sees out in the world and checking in. And that's where we can get to that realization of divine love and what direction is next? What's the next best step for me? So anytime we talk about these kinds of process of managing transition, it is important for us to talk about pitfalls or potholes that we might encounter along the way, and some thoughts about how to manage that. So I have a couple of resources. One of the things I did yesterday as I was preparing, because I tend to think about messages for a while, but then really get down to putting things together, and I was just kind of in front of my bookshelf saying, okay, what wants to talk tomorrow? Who wants to talk? Who wants to show up and share some things? And one of the first obstacles I want to talk about is our tendency, I don't know if this is for you or not, but to dwell on how things used to be. Anyone? Anyone sign up for that? To dwell on how things used to be. Now, of course, in Unity, all of our teachings are founded on Unity founders, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. So Myrtle Fillmore has some things to say to us today. Now, this comes from Myrtle Fillmore's Healing Letters, and this particular section is on transition. And in this case, she is referring to when a loved one has made a transition from the physical body onto the spiritual body, if you will. But it's a quote that applies to so many of our situations when we're just really dwelling and loving on how it used to be. And so here's what Myrtle has to say. Living with memories isn't fulfilling God's plan for your life. She can be so direct.
Ooh, yeah.
Mother Myrtle can just get right to it. So she said, living with memories isn't fulfilling God's plan for your life. God is life within you, eagerly seeking unity with other life, yearning to picture forth the health and joy and strength and usefulness that there is in all God life. God is love that must be converted into loving things of the present, those about you, the thoughts and words and works that are adding to the wealth and peace and beauty of the world now. So there's Myrtle urging us to step out of reminiscing about the past and leaning into the past and giving all of our energy to something that used to be but isn't here anymore. So that's one important resource to think about. The other book that was calling to me yesterday, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, was Finding Inner Courage by Mark, I'm going to guess at his last name, I say Nepo. I've heard some people say Nepo. I don't know if you all are familiar with him. I have a friend that we read books together, and she's a wonderful mentor, and we were constantly exploring metaphysical things. And you see all these marks in my book. These are all things that she was like, you need to do a talk on that one. You need to do a talk. So I texted her and said, okay, I'm using some of our flags here today to hear what Mark Nepo has to say. And so the next topic is when we refuse to accept how things have changed. Anybody ever get into that? That might change, but I'm not going there yet. I'm not doing it yet. So this section of the book is called, let me find it here, The Gateway to Acceptance. Because acceptance is key to transition. We need to really be able to accept what is present now and just be okay with it. So here's something that Mark Nepo has to say about that. The gateway to meaning is not in avoiding loss or getting over loss, but in the effort to accept what is while keeping your heart open. So being able to just be open with what is, recognize what is. It's not that you have to get over, get past all the other thing. We can still learn from things that have gone before, but we have to be able to accept what is present right now in order for us to move forward and transition smoothly, being engaged in the process of transition and keeping our hearts open during that process. So another thing that can happen is that particularly, this can happen on a personal level or an organizational level. Things could have moved on, but our methods are still the old methods. I heard a little snort over it. Like somebody else. Gotcha. So he has a section here called Burning the Raft. And at the beginning of Burning the Raft, he tells a story that's a story about the Buddha. And the Buddha out traveling, and he comes to a place where he needs to cross a stream. And he doesn't have, it's too big to walk across, to wade across. So what is he going to do? So he takes the time to build a raft, and so that he can float across. And then when he gets to the other side, he's like, well, this raft is a good raft. Let me just keep it, because I might need it again. And so he's carrying it with him. And then after a while, it becomes really, wasn't very heavy when it was in the water, but now it's really heavy. And what the Buddha does is basically kind of has a bonfire to celebrate all that the raft gave him and release it. Release the energy that was attached to the raft. So a lot of times in our lives we can be like, this is how I do it. And
keep carrying the raft.
Just keep carrying it. So here's a little quote from this section. We waste so much time and care guarding things that we have no control over or that are already gone. So that's an important thing for us to look at when we're in transition, is like, are we just carrying along? Well, we always do it this way when the circumstances no longer call for that. Another aspect of this, which is related, is giving up what no longer works. So it's slightly different, but kind of the same approach of, what is no longer working. Sometimes it takes us a while to realize what's no longer working, because we're locked in. We've got a pattern. I'm going to do this. This is how I do it. And sometimes it really takes a while before we realize, oh wait, this isn't working. So what Mark Nepo has for us in this section actually brings us around to Scripture. And he has brought an example from a psychiatrist named Gerald May, who has provided some insight into Psalm 46, which you will recognize. It says, the usual translation is, be still and know that I am God. Now, in this quote, there are a bunch of Hebrew words, and I'm just not going to attempt that. I wouldn't want to insult anyone by mispronouncing. So so the Hebrew for "be still and know that I am God" is one of those words is Rapha. Rapha is the word that gets translated into "be still" or "rest," but the literal meaning implies that you've been holding on to something with a white-knuckled grip and you just let go. An ancillary meaning is let fall. Whatever you're holding up, let it fall and know that I am God. And of course that I am, that's one of our anchors in unity. That's one of our names. There are many names for God in unity, and I am is one of the primary ones, because that is, that really brings home that sense of all that is expressing right here at the point of me. When I say the name of all that is, I am. So this rephrasing of Psalm 46, be still and know, shifting into that, not just be still or rest, but let go. So that links into, a very common phrase that we hear, let go and let God. So, coming to that realization, which isn't always easy, of what we might be holding on to, that needs to be let go. So now that we've heard, I'm just meeting you all for the first time, so I'm not sure what your vibe is as far as spirituality goes and what you like and what you don't like. So my approach today is to kind of, let's just touch on a little bit and see what you like. And so now that we've heard a little bit of scripture, all of Unity is based on the teachings of Jesus. So I always like to, bring our Jesus in a little bit. And we're heading into Easter. So what does Jesus have to show us about transition? And of course, Easter is a pretty major transition. And if we just look at the basics of what Jesus demonstrates for us, aside from the story and all of the things that are tied to Easter, what does Jesus do? He clearly demonstrates for us that this divine nature that we are all expressing is not tied to the physical body. The physical body is something we abide in and with and through for a certain amount of time, but all that is carries on beyond that. So there's Jesus letting you know that the light and love of the divine nature is present in all circumstances. Even when we're not seeing it because we're seeing death or we're seeing chaos or we're seeing, appalling things happening in the world, there's Jesus letting us know that no matter how much the body can go through, that our divine nature carries through without limitation. And so that's the essential teaching of Jesus, is that this, this physical process we're going through does not limit us. And there's also the passage in Matthew 17 that's commonly referred to as the Transfiguration, wherein he shows some of his followers essentially his divine nature, what that appears, which is light. So that is present in all of our circumstances, in whatever transitions we're going through. It's there. We need to check in with our divine nature and find ways to plug in so that we can recognize it. And when we're all in our human lives and all in our ego, we don't do a good job of recognizing it, do we? No, because maybe we're watching the news, or maybe we're worried about how much gas costs or whatever.
How we look, what others' impression is of us.
Exactly. Yeah. We're all up in that, and we're not checking in often enough. So that's what, Unity is here to remind us of that. And this is also, the season leading up to Easter, Lent. So this is a wonderful time to reflect on what is it, what is it time to let go of? What can we release? What is it that we're holding on to that we can be still, let go, and lean into the I am. Lean into that awareness of all that is. So what I'd like to do right now is do a little meditation. So if you would, just kind of get comfortable. If you've got anything in your hands, just sort of put it down and give yourself a nice little wiggle in your chair. Take a couple of deep breaths. And just focus on the breath in and out. If you wish, you can allow your outer eyes to drift closed as we open up our awareness to this sacred space that we have established here this morning. With those of us in the room, with those of us who are joining online now or later, just recognize that sacred space, that activity of divine love And let's recognize that activity all through the physical body, starting with the feet as we are rooted in the earth, moving up through the legs, through our core, through the heart space. Just feel that activity of divine love expressing in each and every cell. Move on up through the neck, up into the head space. Let's expand that activity of divine love, expressing light and love out into our communities, into the world. Let's hold there, focusing on the breath for a few moments in the silence, expressing light and love out into the world. And as we move our attention back to the current moment, to the seat where you are, keep that focus on divine love. Feel the warmth in your heart center. Imagine divine love as your compass, showing you what is the next best step in all situations, because it is the feeling that we desire to have that is our goal, not how we want it to see it happen in the outer world, but the feeling that we want to attain. And as we come back into this room and allow your eyes to open, let's have an affirmation together. And that affirmation is, love is my compass. Say it with me. Love is my compass. Once again,
Love is my compass.
One more time with lots of energy.
Love is my compass.
Wonderful. And I have one last reading from Mark Nepo's Finding Inner Courage. And this will seal this process for us today. So give me soft eyes and a willing heart. Give me the sight that waits beneath all seeing, so I can know the compassion that waits beneath all feeling, and enter the sense of oneness that waits beneath all thinking. And so it is.
Beautiful.